One of the interesting things about our product is we don't have it fully assembled and produced somewhere, and then it's shipped to us in a ready-to-retail packaging, right? In 2019, we were taking off-the-shelf parts, literally going to Harbor Freight, Home Depot, ordering parts off Amazon, air fittings, and then assembling them in my garage. And then over time, we realized that there's...
Good morning, inventors, and how are you? Look, just a quick note before the show. Season 2 of the Invent With Me podcast is brought to you by the Invent With Me Patreon. Odds are you've been listening to the show for a while now and you need more information. I don't typically agree with a paywall unless it's a situation in which there's not enough time in the show or there's just more tender love and care needed to get you to the successful point with your invention where you want to be. The sign-up process is incredibly straightforward. Just go into the show notes, click on the link for the Patreon, and sign up via their safe payment platform. $6 a month connects you to the Discord, which is stacked with current inventors as well as other professionals and myself. And together, all of us are going to make sure that your dream becomes a reality. All right, guys, remember, I took the punches so you don't have to, and enjoy this episode brought to you by the Patreon. Thanks. Hello, guys, and welcome to the Invent With Me podcast, where each week we guide aspiring inventors and product creators to turn their innovative ideas into reality. Learn valuable tips, insights, and success stories from people roughing it in the field of inventing so that you yourself can make your mark in the world. I'm your host, Grant, inventor of Torque Strap, a killer new spring-loaded cargo strap, a strap so easy to use, you just pull. And with me in the studio today, my new friend, Tyler of Morrflate, the multi-tire inflation, making off-roading faster and more funner. But more funner, that's not a word. I should probably edit that. How do you describe the product, Tyler? That'd probably be more appropriate.
Pretty much that, man. Our goal is to help make off-roading simpler, easier, and more enjoyable for off-roaders. The cheapest thing you can do to a vehicle to make increase its performance off-roading is to just let air out of your tires.
Wow.
It doesn't cost anything to let air out of your tires. It makes everything so much more of a comfortable ride. It gives you way more traction. It keeps you on top of the terrain, lets your tires mold over rocks so you get more contact patch on weird shaped terrain. And so just by airing down, you have a way more enjoyable time off-roading. And there's so many people we meet out on off-roading events. And we're just like, yeah, what do you air down to? And they're like, what? I don't air down. And you're just like, oh my God,
you gotta air down.
You have to. Like, it's by far the best thing you can do to your vehicle and to yourself too.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, it's a shitty process. And it sucks. It's time consuming. You have to sit there and squat or bend over at a tire for 10 minutes at a time. And everyone just says there's no good way to do it. And I was like, well, if you had a good way to do it, would you do it more often? They're like, yeah, probably. I was like, would you agree that airing down your tires makes off-roading more enjoyable? You're not going down washboard roads at street pressures? And they're like, oh, totally. And I was like, okay, well, here, look, let's talk about this.
Wow. Interesting. So then let's talk specifically, like what year was it that you started having this this inclination that the market needed something simpler? When did all that happen?
Really, I needed something better, because I'm 6'4", and squatting at a vehicle's tire for 5 to 10 minutes at a time, like my knees just get stuck afterwards and I can't get up.
Yeah.
So, I personally was like, I need something better than traditional methods of squatting at tires and make you sit there at the tire the whole time. And then you have to do that 4 times.
Yeah.
And so I started that process, must have been 2015 or 16, something like that. It was right around when I got my first big boy adult rock crawler. And I was going out and doing trips once or twice a month, something like that. And I was like, man, this just sucks.
Yeah.
Airing down sucks. And then inflating wasn't too bad afterwards because I have really big tires, so at least there's some time I can get up and stand up. in between while the air compressor fills up my tire kind of thing. But I was like, there's got to be a better way. Like, what if we found a way to connect all 4 tires together and then inflate from a central manifold? And so I was talking with my uncle about it, and we kind of came up with a concept in our heads of just kind of discussing, because he's also, my uncle's 6'3", we're a tall family. And he was doing a lot of off-roading with me. I was going out with him a lot. And so we were just kind of bullshitting around, and we're like, well, there's got to be an easier way to do this, and came up with a couple ideas, did some Google searching, and found some DIY designs that kind of like blog articles that were showing people, hey, if you go and get these parts from, oh my God, I'm blanking on the place.
Alibaba or something?
No, it's oh my God.
Tractor Supply?
Not Tractor Supply, it's the other one, more of a hardware tool place.
Harbor Freight?
Harbor Freight, there it is.
It's always Harbor Freight, damn it.
It always is, right? So like, here's a parts list of a rubber PVC hose, these different air fittings you need, hose clamps, stainless steel hose clamps, and some single tooth, straight chucks, air chucks for your tires, some ball foot chucks if you want something that's more of a 90. And anyways, gave this big parts list. So I was kind of looking through all that, and I was like, I mean, the rubber PVC hose sucks.
Yeah.
It's great for shops because you're in a kind of controlled, temperate environment. But once you get that rubber PVC hose out into sunlight and UV all the time, they just crack and degrade and disintegrate on you. And I love probably my top favorite thing for wheeling is snow wheeling. My goal is to go out and get stuck in snow.
Yeah.
I'm a kind of a masochist in that point of view. So, rubber PVC hoses freeze up in cold temperatures, and then they don't bend. You can't coil them back up, or if they freeze while they're coiled, you can't uncoil them to air up you can get to your tires. So I was like, the hose sucks. And these chucks, I'll try them out, but I've always known them to never really hold very well, or they don't hold onto your valve stem that long.
Yeah.
They kind of wear out prematurely. And so the first iteration, I pretty much built their design, and I was like, this thing sucks. It sucks to use. It's not easy to use. It's not simple to use. I was like, I would rather honestly do what I was doing than deal with all this.
Right.
And then some time went by, and I saw a couple different styles of hoses, and I would be like, I wonder if that's a good hose material to do this out of. And so I would try that hose material, then another hose would pop up, and I'd just kind of see one. It's always running in the back of my mind, right? I wonder what out there can make this thing work better and be easier to use. And then eventually I learned about Flexzilla hoses, which are a phenomenal air hose. They do a lot of water hoses, pneumatic air system hoses, great hose. And so we kind of ended up ordering, I ordered up some Flexzilla hose, tried it out, and I was like, this thing is awesome. It doesn't hold memory. It's kink free. It rolls right out for you no matter how long you keep it coiled up in a bag or a bundle in the back of your vehicle for 6 months. So I was like, okay, now we're on to something. This hose actually works pretty well. And then from there, I was like, well, how do we find good ways to create fittings, to get good fittings? The next thing was the air chucks, because air chucks are the device that connects onto your tire's valve stem to let air through, right? So think of a gas station pump, and it has it's called a ball foot chuck, but they're typically non-locking, so you kind of have to sit there and hold it onto your valve stem, right?
Yep.
And I was like, you can't sit here and hold 4 tires at one time, so that's obviously not going to work. I need a locking one, something with a tooth on there. And then I started learning that a lot of the chucks out there, they default locked. So like if you're not touching the chuck, you're not messing with it at all, that tooth is in the engaged position. And so what happens is whenever you take that chuck and put it on or off your valve stem on your vehicle, it does one of two things. Because nobody ever fully, 100% of the time, gets that tooth 100% disengaged.
Yeah.
It ends up rubbing that tooth on your valve stem threads.
Right.
Which either wears out your valve stem threads, so you end up having to replace your valve stem or your TPMS if you have a newer vehicle. Or you end up having to replace the air chuck because the tooth wears out. And then it doesn't hold and lock onto your valve stem anymore. And so I was like, well, these are all stupid. Like, you sit there and you have to either replace your valve stem or the air chuck every year, maybe 2 years, something like that. So I was just kind of in the back of my head, always kind of like, I'll keep using it when I'll just keep replacing these things because now that I have a good hose, it's better than just squatting at a tire the whole time. And then I found a 3-tooth locking collars from Haltech. It's a company called Haltech. And what's really neat about them is they have a locking collar that in its normal state without you touching it, typically the collar is backwards, which disengages the teeth. So it's a default disengaged air chuck. But the other big benefit is that when you engage it, there's 3 teeth at 120 degrees, spaced out 120 degrees around this air chuck. So when the collar locks on, the teeth actually grab and put equal pressure on all sides of your valve stem. Because the other issue with a single tooth is if you only have one tooth, say grabbing onto this pen here, you can cantilever that air chuck around and that tooth comes off. With 3 giving equal pressure all the way around your valve stem, you can't cantilever it around and pull the air chuck off.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's always going to grab, right? And so I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. With this actually makes this kind of a more usable system. Like it's actually going to last a little bit longer for people and be easier to use. And they're not going to have headaches of their air chucks keep falling off their tires or air leaks because you can't get a consistent seal with your valve stems. And so from there, I was using hose clamps, stainless steel hose clamps, which have a screw on it. You screw it in, it has a little worm gear in there to tighten the clamp around the hose. And as you tighten this clamp around the hose, there's a stainless steel pigtail that kind of sticks out, right?
Yeah.
And they're really sharp.
Right.
those hose clamps are really sharp. And so I've poked myself and cut myself a couple times, and I was like, this sucks.
Yeah.
This is a terrible idea to have this on something that's handled by people so often. And so then I went down the rabbit hole learning how industrial crimp ferrules work so that you don't have these pokey, sharp protrusions out of it. And so I went down this thing, and once I kind of had all that together, I was like, okay, this is actually a pretty cool product now. And so that whole process took me until about 2017. So it was about 2 to 3 years of playing around with different parts, just constantly having it in the back of my head as I saw things at hardware stores or saw things used in other industrial applications. And so in 2017, I kind of had a fairly decent thing going and would go out wheeling a lot. And, a buddy would ask, that's pretty neat. They'd see me standing back as my air system is airing down my vehicle for me. And then they'd see me coming over and chatting with them while my air system is airing up the vehicle. I'm not having to sit at a tire anymore. People were like, that looks kind of nice, actually. I don't like squatting at my tires. And so buddy would ask to build one. I'm like, yeah, no problem. I'll just pay for the parts and I'll put it together for you. And it kind of kept going like that. And then I had people from my off-roading club and other people in Northern California asking for them that would see them out on the trails, and word would get back that I'm the guy that's building them. And in 2019, so 2 years of kind of doing that, it was sort of like that I was getting more requests than, not necessarily that I could handle, but more requests that it became a pain in the ass to accept money from people, having to meet up with people to get the cash or deliver, or pick up, or whatever the stuff was from my house. And a lot of them would want to pay in checks or Venmo or whatever. And I was like, I need more of a centralized place to do this so that I'm not having to spend my time on the quote unquote admin side of things, of money handling, right?
Sure.
And so also kind of in that time, I've always kind of dabbled with owning my own businesses, doing my own thing to create my own income. And so I'm a big radio nerd, geek, however you want to say it. And so I love playing around with ham radios. And so I went off the deep end, I don't know, 2014 or 15 as well, doing a bunch of ham radio stuff. And I ended up teaching classes to off-roaders on how to use ham radios in off-roading situations and some of the really cool stuff you can do with it, from vehicle tracking, GPS tracking, bouncing signals off of your vehicle to hit repeaters, and all sorts of interesting things. So emergency communication stuff, MCOM stuff. So I was doing teaching classes for that, unlocking radios, modifying radios, programming radios for people, helping people with installs in their vehicles, their off-road vehicles. So I had a company called My Off-Road Radio, thinking, if I can just do this to like earn an extra $500 a month,
sure,
then that will pay for me always going and taking my vehicle out and breaking it and doing stupid things with my vehicle that I love doing, right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of the whole thought behind the side gig quote, right? The side gig economy is just give me I just need an extra $500 a month for play money kind of thing. And so at the time I was like, this hose thing is not, I don't think it's really going to go anywhere. It's cool. I really like it. It makes life so much easier for me. But I'm like, I kind of was starting to put together, if I'm spending now and building 2 or 3 of these things a week for people, that's taking me time. It takes me half an hour, 40 minutes per one of these to make. Plus I have to put in the time to order all the parts and, do the money handling side of it, and just all the back end things that you never really account for your time when you're doing a side gig. And I was like, this is kind of sucking up more time than I want it to. If I maybe I need to make this more worthwhile. That way I just don't tell people I don't want to do this for you. Go blow smoke.
Right.
And I was like, I kind of got to the point where I was like, well, I don't really want to build these anymore. And somebody was like, I'll give you an extra $30, $40 to build it for me. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's extra play money I can put in for the off-roading fund or the beer fund or whatever.
Yeah.
And so just going through that process, I was like, how much? I'm just kind of curious. So if I started really building these and trying to sell them, what would they need to retail at in order to earn a sustainable profit margin? And so my day job was a sales rep for in the tennis industry.
Okay.
I played tennis through high school and college. And after college, I played a lot. I was a general manager of a tennis store here in Sacramento, California. We had 2 locations. So I was kind of in charge of a lot of ordering, merchandising, and then inventory management kind of stuff. Customer service things, events. And so that's one of the big benefits. If anybody out there is kind of like struggling or on the fence of whether or not they should work for a small business, and you're kind of early in your life, your career, if any younger people are listening to this, go work for a small business. You learn so much about business because there's not a lot of people to take care of all the tasks that a business needs to take care of. So you end up wearing a lot of hats and you learn a ton about running businesses. So go work for a small business, and everybody out there. But anyway, so I was doing that. I learned a lot about that. From there, I moved into a sales rep position for Wilson Sporting Goods here in Northern California. So then I got to see and start learning a little bit more about how business on scale works.
Is that like B2B type of sales that you were focused on?
B2B wholesale distribution. And then that was also the time when Amazon was really pumping here, and everybody's trying to decide who's traditionally always been a B2B company. Are they going to get into the D2C markets now and piss off all their B2B retailers? But it was kind of the thing where it's like you have to have some sort of D2C kind of connection concept nowadays. Consumers want to have that experience with the brands that they are dealing with.
Yeah.
So I was doing marketing and sales in Northern California for Wilson, and so getting to see a lot of the in-scale marketing stuff, a little bit more of the background numbers of business in scale, and how kind of all that works. What are a lot of the issues and problems and bottlenecks of bigger businesses, and how are those getting thought about, the thought process in solving those? And so I kind of had all that down. And I was like, so now to kind of take all that experience and start putting it towards, if this is really going to be a product that I can really make a profit margin on, how are we going to need to sell it? Is it going to stay a direct to consumer thing? What's going to be your sales, your channels, your marketing channels, who's your target market? Have to figure all this stuff out. And I was like, man, I don't know if people are going to pay $200 for these things. And so these 4-tire hoses, I was like, they're kind of it's nice because it's portable. So it's a 4-tire hose kit, hooks up all 4 tires, brings the airflow down into one central manifold so that you can stand at one manifold and not have to squat at tires and deal with that all 4 tires from your bumper, standing up, hanging out, talking to your buddies. I was like, I don't know if people are going to want to, pay $200 for this thing. There's other options on the market that are $20 to $50 to $60. Am I outpriced on the market to make this thing feasible? And I was like, but I had still had people ordering them, and I was talking to people. I was like, would you pay $200 for this thing if I made it? And they're like, yeah, probably. After they were using it, like, we've always had this issue of people are like, I don't think I would. And then they use it or see it in action. Like, I totally would.
Yeah.
$200 for that. So I was like, all right, whatever. I'm spending more time doing this. I need to streamline some of my processes, so that this isn't just consuming my life now. And so I put it up under My Off-Road Radio on the radio website. And that's where the MORR in Morrflate comes from. And so I put it up there, and in 2019, that's kind of when quote unquote, that's when I went to market with it, right? I'd been building them for friends, for buddies, for clubs, and it was going well, but I never really thought it would really go anywhere. So I put it under this radio brand name and put it up, and by the end of 2019, it had tripled in revenue anything that I was doing with radios.
Wow, that's amazing.
So I was like, oh, well, there might be something to this then. maybe I'm just a really cheap guy that tries to DIY stuff as much as possible, and there's actually people out there who are willing to pay for convenience. I've never really been one to really want to pay for convenience, but also I was young and had all the time in the world on my hands, and I was like, yeah, I can do this. A handy guy, I can do this stuff. But apparently there's a lot of people out there who don't have a lot of time on their hands and love to pay for convenience. And as I'm growing older, I'm like, that's totally me right now.
Yep.
I will pay money to make things streamlined, efficient, and convenient, and save me time. So by the end of 2019, I was like tripled the revenue of anything I was doing on the radio side. I think it would quadruple or 5x what I had done, quote unquote, revenue wise from the year before in 2018, when I was just making them kind of for buddies and friends throughout the week. And so I was like, well, there might be something actually to this. And so I threw together a just a separate website just for it to kind of bring it out and under its own umbrella, its own focused name. And that was the year COVID hit, 2020.
Yep.
And so, as we all know, everything kind of shut down for like 1 to 2 months. And I was like, I'm not too concerned about it. Overhead is really low right now. It's just a website. It costs me maybe $100 a month for server space and hosting and domain and everything. Other than that, it's just my time to watch for orders to come in, I guess. So, but then we learned that the only thing we could do during COVID was go outside.
That's 100% true.
And go play up in the mountains, go play in our national forests.
Oh boy, I know where this story's going. I know where this story's going. Oh my God.
We absolutely exploded in 2020 because people are just going out with their vehicles, off-roading. The outdoor industry absolutely exploded in 2020. Everybody, all we could do is go outside. And so it was kind of right place, right time with a good product that I'd spent a lot of time refining and getting down to a much user-friendly product and durable and last long. And word of mouth ended up growing it. It's always been, for the most part, grassroots marketing, at least up until that point, for sure. And I think from 2019 to 2020, we 3x'd revenue sales.
Wow, that's amazing. Man.
And so by the end of 2020, I was like, okay, this is actually a feasible, like we can build a business around this product now. It's not just a side gig that is consuming all my life right now. This could actually be a legit business that you can scale and build something around. And so in 2021, the focus of 2021 was then redoing and getting incorporated, setting up all the legal stuff, getting an actual bookkeeper because I knew enough about accounting to get myself in trouble.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
I could read profit and loss sheets and balance sheets and understand kind of what they meant, but in order to put things in correctly so the P&Ls and balance sheets gave you correct numbers, and the IRS knew what you were doing and didn't want to come after you for messing everything up.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I need a bookkeeper. I don't know that much, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I got the bookkeeper in 2021.
Was that a full-time person or like a third party?
Third party contract.
Nice.
Yeah. And she's absolutely been awesome. I absolutely love our bookkeeper. We would not be able to do what we do without her. And so did that, incorporated the business. I think I hired my first employee in summer 2021. Up until then, I was kind of paying friends to come over on the weekend and help me crank out 100 of these things on a weekend, and then kind of sell them for the next 2 weeks, and then pay buddies to come over for a weekend and make 100 of them and sell them for the next 2 weeks. So it was a interesting process, and I was doing it all out of a 1,000 square foot condo with a 2-car garage. I kicked the wife out of the garage to be able to have the build space for these things, and I'm cutting hose in the living room while watching TV, and she's helping me tape fittings and tighten fittings while we're watching a movie at night. So
oh my gosh.
I mean, for a good year and a half, it was all of our spare time was spent, hanging out when we were at home, still working and building these things in our spare time. My wife helped me a ton with it. So, in 2021, we were able to get our warehouse. So we went from the to 1,000 square foot condo. And then in 2020, I got married. So we ended up buying a house and moving to a 2,300 square foot house, but still now I was solidly in the garage. Now I couldn't use the rest of the square footage of the house for storage and building stuff.
Yeah.
You've got a storage unit down the street that you keep extra things in that you can go rent to and get when you need to. And then in 2021, we finally got a warehouse, and that was big. I was like, man, I don't know I don't know if this thing is going to warrant getting a warehouse. We were able to get a 3-year lease on it. And I was like, I don't know if we're going to be around for 3 years. Like I was kind of, sweating over this 3-year lease. But it's 2,300 square feet of just floor space that we could put pallet racking in or shelving. I was thinking just shelving at the time, not even pallet racking. And be able to, pay buddies to come over to the warehouse instead of the house, help me put this stuff together. And
it doesn't have that same appeal. Like, hey, come to my warehouse now and work.
Yeah, exactly. And so halfway through 2021, I was able to finally hire an employee once we had everything incorporated and learning how payroll systems work and banking systems work and all this stuff. It's a huge learning process having to deal with all the back end stuff of business. So you're like, man, you have this really awesome product idea. You figure out how to put the product together. You figure out a way to make production scalable to an extent, but you never, I think that's a lot of the part that I think keeps people from making businesses and turning a good idea into a business is the back end stuff that nobody ever tells you about, like how to deal with payroll, how to deal with workers' comp, how to set up 401ks, how to deal with banking institutions. I hate banking institutions. They're so archaic.
Yeah.
And how to deal with all that stuff. And so that was just a huge learning process through 2021. But once you get the infrastructure set up, then it's a matter of maintaining the infrastructure for scalability to whatever scale you want to get your business to. And for me, I've never known what size I want to get this business to. I'm just always kind of like, well, let's just grow with it and see where it goes.
Yeah.
Just keep eliminating the bottlenecks. Whenever you have a bottleneck, let's eliminate and fix the bottleneck and move on to the next bottleneck and see where growth takes us. But that warehouse was like, I was like, this is an actual business now. Once we had the warehouse infrastructure, everything set up, and I was like, all right, now how do we get this thing to keep moving so that I don't get stuck having to pay these leases and all this overhead now of a business, rather than, little overhead doing it at your house with having buddies come over, to paying employees and paying leases and all the important stuff now, your insurance stuff. And how do we keep money coming in so that you don't just fall on your face, right?
Yeah.
That becomes the next part is, okay, cool. We have all this stuff, but now we have to feed the beast. And you're like, God, now we've created this monster that we have to keep feeding. And that's a scary, super scary aspect too. And so we got lucky that we were still in COVID and the outdoor industry is still booming and more people are hearing about us. And I guess we had a good product that people wanted. And we kept continuing to grow. We were doubling every single year through 2023. So 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23, kept doubling every single year, which is awesome. That's kind of where we're at now. I guess 2024 was another good year. We didn't quite double, but things are they're coming back down to quote unquote normal after COVID, and people are realizing they maybe don't have as much time to go outside, and a lot of people are getting pulled back into work. They don't get to work from home remotely 100% of the time, all the time anymore. So not getting to go out and play in the outdoors as much. And so business is coming back down to normal. We kind of rode the wave, and now it's a matter of continuing to build on and figure out this market that we've kind of created, which has been kind of fun. We were first to market in the space that we created, and we have a bunch of competitors now. And kind of the next step of business is patents, right? To protect yourself and protect the market that you've created. So that was kind of the goal of 2024, is learning a lot about patents and intellectual property and how do you run with all that to figure out that part of the business now so that you don't just get pushed out of your own market that you've now created with this niche product. So,
and that's interesting because a lot of inventors, they start off with a patent, or that's the very first question that they come to us in the Discord with is, hey, let's talk about the patent process. I'm usually telling them to pump the brakes because you don't really know what you're patenting yet. You don't know what's going to sell and what's going to work. The flip side is your situation where you're like, okay, we've been building this. How can we make something unique now that is fresh? It's not prior art, right? And introduce and patent it, and then launch it, and then that be our new moat for what we do. And I recommend your manner much better because you got to make a lot of money along the way before you started investing in things that you didn't know how to return yet. Now you know where the return is, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, exactly.
I want to go back to 2019 because that was the year where you started to move a lot of inventory. That was the year where you realized it was a sustainable, scalable business. And you said in 2019, you guys sold quite a bit. So talk to me about inventory, supply chain, all that good stuff. Hey, because for me, anytime somebody says, all of a sudden my sales went from $10,000 to $500,000, the first thing that goes off in my mind is, where'd you get all that product? And you've talked about it a lot. How did you pay
for all the product?
How did you pay for all the product? China, US, how many people are you sourcing? It sounds like you have a ton of components. So just talk to me about that.
Yeah, so that's one of the interesting things about our product is we don't have it fully assembled and produced somewhere, and then it's shipped to us in a ready to retail packaging, right? That's one way that, once you get into mass scale, in my opinion, that's one of the better ways to do it. You contract people and you have lots of different contracts and DAs set up with them, these factories, to either make all the parts and then assemble them themselves, or have parts made out of the factory shipped into that one for assembly, whatever it is. No, we're taking in 2019, we were taking off the shelf parts, literally going to Harbor Freight, Home Depot, ordering parts off Amazon, air fittings. And then assembling them in my garage. And then over time, we realized that there's manufacturing tolerances built into parts. That you order a part from Home Depot and you order the same part from Harbor Freight, and it's not the same part. Because due to manufacturing tolerances. So we had to find wholesalers and places that we could depend on that to get the same parts from. So now we're having to consolidate where we're getting parts from. And an issue with doing that is if you have one sole place where you're dependent on to get some parts from, if they can't manufacture and produce the part for you, or they're not good at inventory management, you're SOL.
Right.
You've built and designed everything based on the manufacturing tolerances of what this one place can supply. And if they can't supply it, then you're dead in the water for 2 months until they figure out their back orders and production issues. And so when that happened, we were getting our central manifolds from Grainger.
Yes.
And they were giving us a good deal on them. I worked a deal on specific part because we were ordering so many of them that we ended up draining Grainger of that part in the United States multiple times and put Grainger on national back order for these manifolds.
Nice.
And I was like, well, that's kind of cool, but a big problem. So I was like, man, I need to be in control of this inventory management myself. Other people cannot do it to my expectations, so I need to do it.
Right.
And so there's a website out there that everybody's heard of, and especially if you run a business yourself, because they make knockoff parts of everybody's stuff, which is Alibaba.
Right.
And Alibaba is actually a really good source for finding factories. I would never, ever recommend to order anything straight off of Alibaba.
Right.
It all comes with every corner cut during the manufacturing process that they can absolutely cut, right?
You want to build a one-on-one relationship, and Alibaba just is kind of surface.
Exactly.
Transactional.
It's very transactional. They're just trying to get whatever they can get out of you and create as big a profit margin as they can in every cent that they can cut out of the manufacturing process. They're going to do it. But it is a really interesting platform to be able to get in contact with factories and start building that relationship with them.
Yeah.
And so you can talk with them, have one-on-one conversations with reps, with engineers, to kind of be like, okay, are we on the same page here with what I want to do? Okay, here's a CAD design. Build this for me to my specifications and send me a sample. And I will tell you whether or not I'm going to use you moving forward for our manufacturing and production processes. And so I did that with 30 different factories for all of our different parts. And I found what factories make what parts the best. And now we've got that 30 down to a consistent about 10 to 12 different factories. And so, yeah, that whole process of scaling production is an interesting one, because obviously you create more profit margin by outsourcing manufacturing. However, that creates a lot of other headaches when you outsource manufacturing.
Yeah.
So as long as you learn how to deal with those headaches in terms of quality control is the biggest one. And how do you handle quality control, and how does your factory, do they take quality control seriously? If they don't, you need to find a different factory. Because ultimately it's your product at the end of the day. If your product fails on it with a consumer, you're the one that's shit out of luck. The factory will find other customers out there to swindle and get through quality control stuff. So find factories that care about quality control. And B, shipping delays and global shipping logistics. That was a whole nother thing. I think that was 2022 and 2023. And I'm still learning global shipping logistics to this day, right? So those are a massive headaches that they take a lot of patience and a lot of time to solve those headaches. And so you got to decide, is that headache and that time worth the extra profit margin of international manufacturing? If you can figure it out, it's great. If you can't figure it out, then finding places in the States is definitely the way to go, but it's going to keep prices up and to keep profit margins thin typically. So,
and you have to watch out. Sometimes you think you're, doing things in the States, you're buying things in the States, right? But it's all just Chinese crap at the end of the day.
100%. I mean, that was what Grainger was doing. And Flexzilla, when we were using Flexzilla's hose, we would buy out Flexzilla nationwide too on a lot of their hoses.
Yeah.
And so we found that you were, for a while there, Flexzilla wouldn't even talk to us to set up our own account to order through them. And so the best price that we could get Flexzilla hose at was on Amazon.
I've run into that too. Yes, I dealt with that with bungee cords. Yes.
Yeah, right. And it's just interesting. And so we bought out the nationwide supply of Flexzilla through Amazon multiple times, where Amazon banned me from buying Flexzilla hose.
They probably thought you were trying to screw up their bestseller ranking or something.
Either that, or that I was trying to buy all the product and then resell it myself at a higher price.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, right? Because that was also during COVID, where they were starting to say you could only order one thing of toilet paper per week or month or whatever per account or whatever it was. So
yeah.
It got to the point where I was like having my buddies and my friends order Flexzilla hose off Amazon because Amazon banned me, and then I got my friends banned from ordering Flexzilla hoses, kind of thing. So finally, I was like, "Yo, Flexzilla, I've been trying to create an account with you. You guys won't let me, and I'm literally buying so much that Amazon won't let me anymore. Like, why? I have the bulk, and so finally they let me open up an account.
Wow.
And then I would buy them out where they're, can't get me product for 2 months because they're just building it in China, and they're adding my order to their production numbers in China while it's in production, and they weren't able to manage my production process in their inventory management, I guess. So, I ended up finding out anyways along the way that Flexzilla hose kind of deteriorates over time, especially with air fittings and air crimps. And so I was like, well, this isn't going to work. After 2 to 3 years, the crimps start leaking. You start getting leaks in the product. So I ended up having to go to a hose factory to learn about hose materials and different kinds of things. And we developed and made our own hose. In order to solve the problem that we were having with Flexzilla hoses. But like, that's a supply and scalability issue as well. How do you solve this problem of depending on other companies to manufacture stuff in China, bring it into the States with their shipping logistics, and then have to go through their inventory warehousing processes to then get it out to you? And once I learned that that's really what everybody's doing,
right,
I'll just do it myself.
Right.
So, yeah, and then you get to learn how to do that process yourself. But once you do, knowledge is power, and you just kind of become in control of your own destiny rather than depending on other people for what you need to have happen. So,
yeah. I mean, you're always going to have to depend on somebody, right? But you might as well depend on the least amount of people possible and get to the root of the source. I tell you, man, it's like I blink my eyes and I'm there with you, because that was my story to the T. I was in the very beginning ordering a ton of bungee, ordering a ton of heat shrinks. That's how we kind of finish off. You've seen the product.
Yep.
And then I start kind of looking at the boxes that things come in. They didn't even remove the Chinese shipping label, from the Chinese factory. And I'm thinking, okay, so there's my in. And it's not like when I was that naive, I'm like, oh, they're going to keep all this secret and blah, blah, blah. They really don't care about you that much. They're just like, how much you need to order? And yeah, we'll try to get it out in a couple of days. Yeah. It's just funny, man. Well, I really admire the fact that you are spinning so many plates with that many different sourcing factories, and you've got it dialed in that well. And still now you basically you bring in X components from these factories and then assemble in the warehouse and then pack and ship.
Yep. And then and we've been doing that since 2021, I think, is when I started realizing that all of my vendors that I buy parts from in the States just build all their stuff in China. And anyways, like that kind of thing. I think 2021 is when I started realizing that. And I was like, well, what if I just figure out a way to get in touch with China myself and find these factories myself? And so we've been shipping everything in to Sacramento, California. So it just due to production timing at all these different factories, we don't really get to like hold everything in China before it goes out so we can fill up a shipping container and ship it out. We're doing, LTL, which is, for people familiar with shipping stuff, we're just shipping cartons, and with every shipment, then whenever they're ready. So it's very inefficient shipping costs compared to filling a shipping container and sending that over. And it's a lot more logistics you have to keep track of.
Yeah.
When you're doing all these little individual orders from all these different factories to come into Sacramento, California, so that you don't run out of product in the end and go on back order.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're just shipping everything in, and then we have a production team in Sacramento at the warehouse that assembles everything, does the final quality control checks on everything, and then we do the order processing and distribution from Sacramento, California to the United States and Canada and And then we started getting people interested in Australia and Dubai and the Middle East and South Africa. And we're like, well, yeah, we can ship it to you guys, but now we're having to spend another $150 shipping our product from Sacramento back out to Australia and Dubai and international retail stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so the next step has been trying to figure out how to do that more efficiently and take care of consumers in these other countries that we don't have a presence in. And you can't do warranties from Australia to the United States. Like if somebody ends up having a product issue in Australia, it's not feasible to get the product back from them, fix it, figure out what the problem was, and either send them a new product or say, nah, you just weren't using it right. Everything's working, and send it back to them. Like it's just not feasible at all to do that kind of stuff. So how do you really take care of markets that you're not there? And so since we started learning about international retail,
you kind of froze
and setting up retail assembly factory in China to assemble, fit, ship national retailers. Oops, did I lose you?
We kind of lost each other. Let's give it.
There we go. It looked like you're back there.
Yeah, let's give it 10 seconds. I'm going to take a note.
Okay.
All right. You're still pretty glitchy.
You're coming in smooth right now.
I can hear you fine, but I can't see you. Oh, it just told me my internet connection sucks, but nothing changed on my end. Let me pop off of my Wi-Fi and back on. It's like it's 2025. Can't we figure out virtual podcasts?
Right.
Okay. We may be back.
Okay.
Yeah, I hear you clear. You're just a little blocky, but I think that'll come back. So yeah, honestly, I wasn't paying too close of attention when it started to glitch out. So wherever you want to start with that. Yeah, no, we're still.
So we get all of our parts.
We're still tripping out, Tyler. Hold on a sec. I'm gonna close the Google Meet and rejoin you.
How's that? Is that any better?
Well, once again, I hear you fine, but there was a huge latency. Now I see you pretty well.
Okay, yeah, something's going on. I've got 2 mesh networks in my house, so I'm connected to the other one. Come back. Are you still there?
Yeah, let me close the Google and
there it goes. Now I'm back up.
Okay.
I'm back up. It's on my end.
Got it. Yeah, you look and sound good now.
Cool. All right. So yeah, we get a lot of our parts in from other places, right? And we have multiple factories that we're creating now. We've gotten to the point where, I talked a bit about some of the parts before, right? So the hose, we've created our own hose now because we had issues with Flexzilla. And then we've created our own air chucks now because we found some issues with the old ones, and Haltech, we addressed it with Haltech and their engineers, and they were kind of like, oh, that's good to know, but they didn't want to fix them. And so we went and created our own air chuck, designed and engineered our own. We spec and design all of our own air fittings now. We had to do a bunch of different, like every single part that we use now is no longer off the shelf stuff, and they're very specifically made and designed for what we want them for. And so we have all these different factories that kind of specialize in each little part that we do. We have everything sent into Sacramento, California, and then we have a production team, assembly team that puts it all together by hand in Sacramento, does the final quality control processes for it, and then we ship and do order processing for customers and customer service and shipping for distribution across the United States. And we've been doing that until we started selling more and more in other countries. You know, when you're trying to sell a product to a country that you don't really have a foothold in, you don't have a presence in, it makes it very difficult to do any sort of customer service.
Right.
And if the customer has questions about something and they're in Australia, they're on a completely, almost a 10-hour, 12-hour different time zone than we are. So being able to allow them to call us to ask questions in the middle of their day means that we have to be working at 6, 7 p.m. at night. And so it's not, and if they have warranty issues or they want to buy something else, they're spending $150 in shipping every single time to get something from California to Australia. So we were like, we need to set up retailers in Australia. Like, we have to, as much as I love D2C, I love having that brand connection with consumers and that brand experience with consumers, and being able to have all those touch points with consumers. I absolutely love that, and interacting with customers. But it's not feasible for international stuff.
Right.
And so when we figured out that we needed to set up retailers in other countries, but we were so big now that Alibaba and Temu and these transactional websites that we've talked about pop up, and they're ripping off your product. They're creating knockoffs of your product, and they can get them into the countries way cheaper than you can.
Yeah.
How do you now solve the problem of double shipping everything? Because we're shipping from our factories to California for assembly and production, and then back out to Australia. So we now have an assembly factory that assembles about 25 to 30% of our product. And then we ship it direct from the assembly factory to our international retailers.
Oh, awesome.
And doing that alone has been able to allow us to reduce the retail price in those countries by over $100.
Yeah, I bet.
Just because of global shipping logistics and how expensive shipping is.
Yep.
So, we still do now, like I said, 60, 75% of our production here in California, for the United States, but we're doing, 25, 30% of the production now at an assembly factory and then shipping it direct to our international retailers. So that's been another kind of scaling point of how do you scale business as you get bigger and bigger, and a problem you have to solve.
Yeah.
So,
and the other interesting thing is, obviously, I blinked my eyes and I'm in your seat because I was assembling in the U.S. and then we got a lot of interest in Australia. Imagine that. We're both kind of in the off-road space. Yep. And had to deal with the exact same stuff. And that's when I realized I have to manufacture this almost fully in China, which I ended up doing. And that's been for the better all around. But in the beginning, you fight that. You don't want that. You hear stigmas about that. But the people you hear who are naysayers, they don't really understand where their products are coming from. They don't really.
No, they don't.
No, they just don't understand that that's not really how manufacturing works.
It's always funny to me. You talk about the stigma of Chinese products, right? And I think that that stigma is getting worse with places like Temu and Alibaba.
Yeah.
People being able to buy stuff off of those websites. But like, it all comes down to quality control. if you set up good quality control processes with your factory and you find factories that care about following your processes and your spec callouts, China is an awesome place to do business in. They really care about customer service. They really care about timely communication. I don't know how many times I sit here and try and get a hold of a rep here in the United States for some company, and I can't get anything done for... I have a fun story right now. I've been trying to get pricing on a product since mid-November for a product that's a made in the USA product and is completely in the United States that we're trying to incorporate into our stuff. And I'm just like, I can't do business with you guys because it just seems like you don't care about business. You don't care about the relationship and timeliness. And I seem to hit that constantly whenever I try and do business in the States. And I'm just like, dude, the Chinese people, they want your business. They love doing business. They love customer service. I think they view customer service and they treat it as a very high priority. You just have to be very careful about making sure they follow your spec callouts and quality control. But like the naysayers that are like, oh, it's just Chinese crap, it's another Chinese crap thing, are usually the people that are driving big Ford trucks and GMC trucks and Chevy diesels and stuff like that. And it's like, that conversation that the CEOs of Ford and General Motors and Stellantis and everybody just had with Trump about all the tariffs that he's implementing, they're having that conversation behind closed doors with Trump because they order all their stuff from China.
Right.
Everything in your big Ford truck is from China. Everything in your cell phone is from China. Like, where do you think all this stuff is coming from? Everything in your TV, your big screen TV that you have in your house and your sound system is from China. Like,
yep.
It's just people are very, very nearsighted, I think, when they try and jump on that Chinese crap stigma. And it all just comes down to the brand and how the company manages their quality control and spec callouts.
Yeah.
So
I always tell people the difference between a good Chinese manufacturer and a bad one, it's you. It's how hard you are.
100%.
It's how hard you are on them about quality. It's how diligent you are with your tech packs, however you consolidate information and transfer it to them. It is your job to make sure it is understood.
Yep. Absolutely. That's a great way of putting it.
I mean, you think like China, they're flying balloons over our head on the rig. They got their stuff on lock. They just pick and choose who they do it right for. So be one of the ones that they respect, and you will get good product.
Absolutely. Yep.
Talk to me about marketing now in 2024, because I understand it was very grassroots in the beginning, but I'm sure you hit that point where you're like, oh, well, if I want to be a 7-figure or get close to an 8-figure business, whatever the goal is, I need to be able to predict sales and not just go off of the next off-road rally where I'm going to wave a banner around. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. We're a lot of it is still grassroots. The off-road industry loves person-to-person connections.
Yeah.
You think the off-road industry is typically a very traditional industry where they like the personal connections, right? We love going out and hanging out with people around campfires. We love going out and just wheeling and hanging out with people for the day, for an overnight camping trip, whatever it is. But we don't want to deal with the headaches of day-to-day life. That's why we go out and escape to the mountains and get away from society for a weekend, right? So still a lot of our marketing is very grassroots. Cool. We still do a lot with off-road events. We do a lot direct-to-consumer stuff. We do just reaching out and kind of taking care of influencers to Kleenex. I'm looking at my Kleenex box here in front of me. An influencer to Kleenex is a very different definition from what we call an influencer.
Yeah.
We call an influencer anybody who has a rapport with anybody in their warm market.
Yeah.
Right? Anybody who can influence a purchasing decision in your warm market, whatever that is. It's not just on social media. It's an off-road club. It's a president or vice president or the trail leader of your local off-road club, right? So finding those people and just building relationships with them and helping them bolster and build the community that they're trying to build and they're passionate about. That's what we found has been the best form of marketing so far. Social media, obviously, you need to create fun and entertaining content nowadays. It's not just people don't want to see companies talking about themselves
or wishing you a happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, they don't want to see that. They don't care. They want to see you. What fun things and fun ideas can you come up with about your product, right?
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things I love about watching on the TorqueStrap ads is you find really fun ways to do the same thing and say the same story over and over again, right? And I think that's a lot of where marketing is nowadays. It's finding more fun and creative ways to make people laugh and enjoy their 5 seconds of scrolling through their social feed. And like, oh yeah, I remember that neon green company. They did something funny with hoses. Oh, they were able to reseat 4 beads at one time on a vehicle. Or, oh, that neon green company slashed a tire with a knife, stabbed their sidewall, and then ran the Rubicon Trail with a patched tire sidewall kind of thing. So finding fun ways to entertain people and then becoming the expert in your field. I can't emphasize that enough. People don't want to hear you talk about how great your product is. People want to hear about why a whole product category is good for them. And then if you can help be the person that is the trusted source of information about why that product category is good for them, then they build that relationship with you. And that's when they come back to your brand, because your brand becomes the knowledgeable one. It's not because you have a good product. I don't want to say everybody has a good product. There's a lot of bad products out there. But people can get a decent enough product for what they want to spend money on pretty much anywhere, right? Yeah. And so really it comes down to the consumers having trust in you, that you're going to treat them right, that you're going to take care of them after the sale, that they're going to have a good experience with you, and that you know what you're doing. Those are the people those are the businesses that are going to end up earning the consumer's trust and the consumer's purchasing. So if you can show that you do those things, the product is, as long as you have a good product, you don't have a shitty product. That's when you'll earn the sales. And that's where a lot of the marketing comes down to. People don't want to hear about how much you love your product because you think it's the best thing in the world, right? Of course, a company is going to say that. You wouldn't be in business making your product if you didn't think that. So everybody thinks that. Everybody thinks that they have the best thing. Consumers don't want to hear that. They want to know that they're going to be taken care of, and they want to know that they're going to have a good time dealing with you, that it's going to be easy, simple, hassle-free. And so that's where you need to, I think, be focusing marketing nowadays.
Yep.
As the consumer experiences.
Yeah, very well said. Very well put. That was concise. And yeah, that's really on point. And a lot of people need to hear that. We have a lot of people in the Discord, and we even have like a Rate My Video channel. And most of the guys do pretty good, guys and gals, I should say. But everybody's stuck in the ShamWow infomercial mindset, the Billy Mays OxyClean mindset, you know?
Yep. Look how awesome this thing is. It takes away all this, and it'll do this for you, and it'll do that, and it's the best thing ever since sliced bread, and you need one.
But wait, there's more. Yeah.
Yeah.
I try to, and it's tough, right? You've seen how much stuff I've thrown at the wall. You want to hear my newest gimmick? I kind of saw this on like deep web Middle East video. I don't know how or where. I don't know what I consume. It just happens to me. But for my next gimmick, I'm going to get a firecracker with a nice long green wick. I'm going to light it, stick it in my pocket, and then I'm going to do my demo. And I think that's a guaranteed way to get people to watch the entire video.
Is it gonna blow up on him or not?
I'm still trying to figure out the logistics on that. Maybe I'll make like a leather pouch that I slip it into in my pocket to protect the family jewels. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you're completely tapped on ideas, just look at the trends of how people are hooking audiences. A lot of people are stitching riveting hooks on, which I think is about to die, frankly. But for instance, there will be a famous video of a guy getting hit by a bull from the back end, and they'll do a quick cut where they jump into frame like they just got hit by the bull. It's just it's a gimmicky way to get people's attention. I think it worked for about a month. I think that fad's about over. And next it'll be the firecracker in the pocket. And round and round we go. But hey, that's the game we're in.
Yeah, you need to find ways to entertain people. People want infotainment nowadays. There's too many ways to gather information. If people just want to gather information and not be entertained, they're just going to ask AI, right? Google AI, and Google AI is going to spit them out an answer.
Yeah.
They're going to come to you because you're going to find fun ways, and they're going to associate that with you and good feelings with you next time they want to know something from you. So, marketing is all about infotainment nowadays, I feel like. So
yeah, and it takes a long time. It's a long road. Marketing is building that trust. One thing I've recently noticed is I spent years just doing top of funnel social media videos, the ones that everybody laughs at, the ones that go viral, but they don't make a lot of sales.
Yeah.
Now it's to the point where I have so many people swimming in my funnel that I do better when I post more factual videos. I've earned that. You can't do that from the beginning. But now they're like, okay, Grant, stop assing around and just tell us what you're really selling. We're ready. We're warm.
Yep. That's true.
Well, cool, man. Love the story. Love the product. I really appreciate your candor. Before we wrap it up, is there any like tools or programs, anything you're really geeking out about right now that helps a lot in your day-to-day?
Not really. Being able to take care of your employees. I think your employees are always going to be your biggest asset as a business. And it always kills me whenever I hear about a company that is just screwing over their employees, right? And their employee is just another number. I would not be able to do what I do today and be on this podcast right now and be able to, for the most part, work from home, to spend time with my 1-year-old, my new kid, right? And without the employees that I have and the managers that I have. And they do an amazing job, I think, because I treat them like a very valuable part of the business. And so that's just another thing that I think a lot of people undervalue. I have an uncle. I don't know if he's ever going to listen to this podcast, but he's in the restaurant industry, and just the status quo of the restaurant industry is, in my opinion, they don't take care of their employees well enough. And I've got friends who own vehicle repair shops or off-road parts install shops, and like all their employees are 1099 contracts, and they're not giving their employees benefits. They're not giving them 401k matching options. It pays in the long run to take care of your employees, find the good ones, and take care of them, because that's another big benefit of taking care of your employees. Word gets around that you take care of your employees.
Yeah.
And if you treat them like a valuable asset of your company, then it makes it very easy to steal good employees from other businesses and other companies. Too. So, and your employees are your everything. I mean, without your employees, your business fails. You can't do it all yourself. So I would say that's the big thing that I'm always geeking out on. I'm always trying to find ways to show the employees they're appreciated, to do fun things with them, for them, because they work their asses off, and they're not micromanaged. They take care of their stuff. They get it done. There's a lot of times they surprise me. I'll be like, hey, can someone look into this? And they're like, yeah, I did that yesterday. And I'm like, Oh shit, good job. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, reward your employees appropriately. Make sure that you keep business and coming to work fun so that they want to keep coming and working for you. I think that's the biggest thing that will save you time and save you headaches is if you take care of your employees. So
great advice, man. Yep. Couldn't agree more. Mm-hmm. Well, thanks again, Tyler. And then where can people hear more of your stuff? You mentioned it earlier, the podcast.
Yeah, so we have, I do a lot of stuff. I do a podcast. We have 3 episodes a week on Snail Trail 4x4. And so that's more like outdoor infotainment stuff, where Jimmy, my co-host, who you've gotten to talk to about snail armor, we talk about our adventures and going outdoors. People can live vicariously through our bad mistakes and learn from our mistakes too. And then we have Morrflate, which is all over social media, the morrflate.com. That's MORRFLATE. If you do off-roading, come check us out. We have some really cool stuff. We've started, how I said I was into radios and technology stuff and nerd a geek. We've now put a lot of electronic technology into air systems to make them all automated. So you can automatically inflate and deflate your vehicle so that all you really have to do is set up the system and then hit your desired pressure, punch it in, and then hit go. And you can go do whatever else you want. You can go for a hike, you can take a nap, you can make lunch, and your air system just does all the work for you now. So it's a really easy and simple way to enjoy off-roading because you take the sucky part of off-roading, which is inflation, deflation, out of your task now. The air system does it all, so you can do other things. So come check us out if you like off-roading, and say that you heard about us over on the podcast here with Grant, and we'll give you a nice discount. So
cool. We can set up a custom code if you want and throw it in the show notes.
Yeah, we can do that. That'd be fun.
Cool. All right, Tyler. Well, thanks again, man. And I'll let you hang up and I will close out the show, brother.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on, Grant.
Sure thing. Thanks, Tyler.
Cheers, bud.
There it is, Tyler, the inventor of Morrflate. It's not always the traditional path. We have a lot of inventors come on here and they dream up a better mousetrap and they get some CAD drawings, they source it in China and then hit the warehouse and boom, they're on their way. Sometimes it's a slow burn. It's a safer burn. Yeah, it's a lot of work and labor. Maybe that's not what you want to do, but guess what? Tyler got to make money the whole way along the trail. I'm sure he lost some too, but he got to do business along the way without taking giant financial risks and leaps, and he got to validate the market as he went. Okay, I think that's a beautiful thing. Remember, guys, Tyler and I took the punches so that you don't have to. Thanks, guys. We'll see you on the next one.